New York State's Kendra's law requires outpatient treatment for patients over 18 with a serious psychiatric disorder and who are non-compliant with their treatment program. They're mandated by a judge to have a case manager and can also be ordered to take meds, maintain housing, and get work counseling so they can get back on their feet and be more self-sufficient.
Those people statistically do not go to jail. They're not re-hospitalized. They're not homeless anymore. And they do significantly better with assisted outpatient treatment. The problem is that most of the states are not implementing it yet. However, recently a bill in Congress just passed, introduced by Representative Tim Murphy, and that bill will allow a lot of funding for other states to start implementing their AOT laws. All but 4 states have that now.
We actually, our association has been very active in this, and we helped and had input in tweaking New York's law during the last session because there are loopholes in it. We're not at the point yet for need for care, and a part of that is a misunderstanding, in my opinion, on advocates that are opposed to assisted outpatient treatment, a misunderstanding of what we're talking about. Civil liberties become a huge issue. No one should have to be medicated that is opposed to, doesn't want to be medicated. And I agree with that. And I think that only the people that need to be medicated should be medicated. But I also argue that I am not infringing on someone's civil liberties by having a court order them to be medicated, when without that medication they're on a street corner eating out of a dumpster, speaking to God in 10 languages and dying, who studies show are appreciative after they're brought in for an AOT program, comply with medication and say, oh my God, thank you so much, I can't believe the things I was doing and saying, and thanks for bringing me back to reality. My argument is that no, I'm not stepping on their civil liberties, you are. You're refusing them the ability to be able to exercise their civil liberties in a manner that they should be able to exercise them too.
Crisis intervention teams are a collaboration between law enforcement and mental health professionals to serve persons in crisis and their families. They've become more popular in recent years, and the training programs include valuable strategies such as verbal de-escalation training, active listening, and safe restraint techniques.
We are beyond the point of CIT being a specialty. Every officer needs to be able to deal with crisis intervention, use those tools and de-escalation tools when dealing with a mentally ill person.
There's a lot of concern by civil libertarians about compelling treatment for persons with mental health disorders. I asked Mike and Barbara if we're heading in the right direction with balancing individual liberty against personal and public safety.
I think we saw steps in the right direction last week. It's far from being where we need it to be. What we need is public realization of what the actual issue is, and I think most general public do not understand. And I think people that are in opposition to what I'm saying don't understand what we're discussing. And I mean that in that they're looking at mental illness as a really broad picture rather than those who are truly suffering and unable to care for themselves and need someone to be able to assist with that, in that vein. There are people that feel that everyone should be able to direct their own care, and that's just not the case. There are people that are so ill that that's not possible.
Because police officers are often the frontline responders for dealing with persons in crisis, it makes sense that the legislature should listen to what cops have to say. Not that we have a solution or a quick fix, but because we see the problems, the lack of facilities, the bureaucracy, the ability to get a person into emergency care but not sustained care. Police officers are dealing with this complex issue on a daily basis.
Well, they should listen to them because we deal with them more than the medical community does. I mean, all too often the stories go to a police officer that shoots and kills someone with severe mental illness, you know, or the other way around. A severely mentally ill person shoots and kills a police officer, or you know, the general public. And I think that we deal with it more. I mean, and shouldn't be. It should be something that we should be out in front of. I mean, as a society, we should be out in front of. The medical community should be out in front of. And I think in order to do that, it's really imperative that we raise the consciousness of the general public. Because obviously, if your brain is not functioning properly, you cannot make the decisions that are in your best interest often. And I mean, if that were the case, if we're going to say everybody should be able to determine their own destiny, why are we going on bridges to take people off that are going to jump? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. We can't leave the people that can't help themselves languishing on the street corner. It's just, you got to get them help.
A few years ago, the New York State Association of Chiefs of Police established a committee on untreated severe mental illness to create more awareness on the issues which have become so apparent to us in law enforcement. People with untreated severe mental illness are routinely involved with law enforcement, and we need to share our observations with legislators, policymakers, and the public.
Yeah, I would like to say that the committee we started 3 years ago has worked hard nationally, and we have really become the go-to law enforcement group in the nation when an issue arises having to do with untreated severe mental illness. And I think we helped greatly in the passing of this last legislation in the House. And I think that's what's needed. I think that law enforcement and criminal justice in general that now has or shoulders the burden of this, the major burden of this problem, needs to be aware of how it came to be that way and that it shouldn't be that way. I mean, we all too often talk about response protocols like CIT, where I believe this is an instance where law enforcement leadership needs to get out in front of this legislatively and needs to be heard so that things change, because without our input, I don't think things will change.
You can learn more about social issues and mental illness by visiting the Treatment Advocacy Center website at treatmentadvocacycenter.org and the Mental Illness Policy Organization at mentalillnesspolicy.org. I'm Mark Spawn for the New York State Association of Chiefs of Police.